Hi, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at elleruss.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. Today, my guest is the amazingly inspiring Melanie Ann Layer. She's the founder of the Alpha Femme Brand. She's known for her unique approach to feminine leadership and wealth energetics. But this is not where her story began, because after a bankruptcy that left her sleeping in her car, Melanie actually took her first life coaching call from the seat of her Honda Civic in 2013. An amazing journey of evolution and growth, but since the creation of Alpha Femme in 2017, her brand has generated over $20 million, with over 600% growth from year to year, consistent $1 million months since November 2020, and her shift is a testament to her work and teachings that now serve women all around the globe. Enjoy the show. Melanie, welcome. So happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, you're such a powerhouse. And as I mentioned in the intro, your creation of this Alpha Femme sort of movement. And I love the word alpha. You're an alpha, I'm an alpha. And, a lot of alpha women, we've got some pitfalls, but we've got some, really great qualities where we need to really rise. But let's start with your story, because you weren't always this badass multimillionaire, and you had very humble beginnings. I think people would be surprised you slept in your car for a few months. So tell us about where you were before you even got in to being an amazing, high performance lifestyle coach.
Well, this is an interesting story because there's a million places I could start. But my life up until personal development had very much been kind of just a normal life where bad things would happen, but my expectation was that bad things happen to everybody. So it wasn't awful as when I look back in hindsight and I'm like, gosh, those are some pretty awful things. It's almost like I'd normalized difficult. Because it's just the way everyone around me lived. I lived in a small town where the welfare's through the roof, and most of my friends' parents are divorced, and bad boyfriends are usually the way it goes, and no money is just the name of the game. And so it didn't ever feel like I was suffering in that. It felt more so like it was normal. And I actually thought very well of myself because my family had difficulties in the past. And I started my first business when I was 12 years old. I started a company where I helped kids learn English and finish their homework at school. So I'd been entrepreneurial for a long time, and I'd helped my parents out of a bankruptcy. Bankruptcy was in my family, poverty, stress, we'd lived all of that. So I knew I could tap into things where I could help people. What I didn't know is that it was possible to have quality of life, actual sheer enjoyment of life as it is. That's one thing that I didn't know was normal. What felt normal was...
Let me jump in and ask you this on this. So when you were, during this time, when in hindsight, do you think, were you having the thoughts, for some people in those situations were like, well, this is just life. Did you think that better life that other people are living are for me, or just that's them and that's their life and I'm not going to be able to get there? Where was your hope there? Or did you have any?
I did not have any.
Okay.
To the point where if someone looked happy, I believed they weren't.
Aha.
It wasn't possible. They had money, but they probably were being cheated on, or they had no time with their family, or something else was missing. I saw my good heart and my good self as the exchange for poverty. And it didn't seem like any exchange would have been worth it. I liked who I was in my heart. And I couldn't imagine that it's okay. It would be normal, for example, for me to be this good of a person in my heart and have no money if good people also had money. I felt like if
it feels not fair, doesn't it? This isn't fair. I'm a good person. Yeah.
So it's there must be something not right about rich people. And I don't want those things. I'd rather be nice and poor. So it just wasn't for me. I never even thought about it. It was just not even a thing for me. It was not accessible.
Okay.
I didn't know anybody rich. And the only person I knew that was rich it was a very odd thing. I don't want to say too much just in case, but the only one person I knew that was rich, a lot of things were said about that person. So I think that might have even been my my story about rich people stemmed from there, now that I think about it. So what happened for me is I just wanted to get by. And what I wanted more than anything is I wanted to travel. That was like my dream thing that looked like it was going to be impossible for me, that I dreamt of. I remember working at Sears at some point, and I used to go to the travel counter and go get the magazines and just look at where I could maybe travel. Oh my gosh, I would do the math on a $2,500 vacation. Like, how long would it take me to put money aside to go on vacation? At $2,500, it would have taken me years to pay it off. Like, I was just trapped in the reality I was in. But where things started to change for me is I got a job that was 100% commission. And I found out that I was actually really great at live demonstrations, like doing a little show, and I was selling like slap chops and ShamWows and that kind of thing, live demonstrations, like on QVC, but live in stores. And I actually found out that I was good at that. And I started making quite a lot of money for what it was. Like, I remember I was 21 or 22, and I was making on a good day $1,000 in a day.
That's an upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was such an incredible thing. And I had this boyfriend since I was 19, and I was like, you do this, it's fun. And he couldn't really do it. So I tried to push him to do it, and he wasn't really good at it, but I got him a management job. Eventually I became the trainer, and we were doing this thing where he was managing the division in Montreal, and I was training there and making all this money. It was great, but he just was not the right person for me. And it was getting increasingly clear, even though we'd been together for like 7 years. And when I broke up with him, he fired me.
Yeah. That's a doozy right there. You're like, I gave you this. Yeah.
So the only way I could continue working for the company was to move 200 kilometers outside the radius of Montreal. So I ended up in this little town trying to sell, and my heart was broken, and I just couldn't sell, and everything was a nightmare. And my sales just started to dwindle until I couldn't pay for the hotel room. And that's how I ended up sleeping in my car.
So now you're in the car. I mean, at this point, did you not have family you could reach out to? Or were you just too embarrassed? Was it like, why not crash on a friend's couch? Was that just not even a possibility?
So I always put myself in positions where I was the one that helped. So receiving help, I was the helper, not the helped. Mm-hmm. So already I didn't really have people that could help. I did ask for some help, and it was like not possible for the people that I had asked. And my parents and I were not in a good place at that point. We'd been through a lot, and it was just not good. Plus they had not been telling me to leave this guy for a while, and I hadn't. So there was this whole fear of like, told you so, that I just didn't want to play with. So I just figured I'd be able to figure it out. Like, eventually I'm going to sell again. Eventually I'm going to turn this around. Like, it can't stay this way. But then it did. And I remember just being so mad at everything, and mad at the world, and mad and angry. And I Googled in my car, in my smartphone, like, how to make your ex-boyfriend cry. I Googled that in the front seat of my Honda Civic, and I felt so embarrassed with myself. I was like, what the heck am I doing? Because when the search came through, it was like, how to have the relationship of your dreams or something. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm still making everything about him. I'm still not making it about me. And I that's how I found really like the connection to personal development, and like taking radical ownership for my life, and being like, there's one thing in common here with everything. And it's the way that I feel about everyone right now. Like, I'm the common denominator. Yep. So I started the personal development work really just as myself, taking my power back, taking radical responsibility for who I am, my emotional intelligence, the way I see the world, and relationships, like how to actually be a woman and not trying to fit in. Because my dad always used to tell me, even when I was a little kid, like, hey, be a man, like, be a man. It's like, and he used to say it to me in French, faire un homme de toi. It would mean like, buck up, don't cry, don't do that. Don't be that way. Tough up. Yeah. But he would actually say, be a man. And I just always felt like being a girl was not a great thing. And I always wanted to be tough and driven and bossy, because it's what got me where I needed to go. But at the end of the day, I felt lonely and alone and sad. And so I did a lot of work on reclaiming my femininity and understanding my power as a woman, and how absolutely different that is from everything I tried to be to fit a mold to please people. and reconnected with my feelings, my emotions. And that was the beginning of my journey as a coach. And one day out of nowhere, a friend called and I gave her some support on something she was going through. And she ended up having a huge breakthrough from our conversation and started recommending me to people. And she was like, I have people who want to pay you. How much do you charge? And I was like, I don't charge nothing. I sleep in the front seat of my car. I didn't tell her I was sleeping in the front seat of my car, but I was like, I don't charge anything. Like I was just helping you. And she's like, no, but I've talked about you to my friends. And so it was kind of a strange thing, the way the business started, because there were
what did you charge on the first couple? I'd love to know. I mean,
$100 Canadian for the hour.
For the hour. Yeah. And, one of the things you say is, right, about like, you're not paying for the hour, you're paying of the value I bring to the hour. We'll talk maybe later about, coaches and how they have issues struggling with the confidence to raise rates. But okay, so you're charging $100 an hour and you're taking your first life coaching call from the front seat of your Honda Civic.
Yep. And the crazy thing is, the way I got to that $100 price point is I had this really traumatic experience happen, and the responder on site gave me a card to go see a healer, and the healer charged $100 a session. And I kept that card in my car for weeks, and I saved every penny I had. Like I basically didn't eat. I got this $20 membership at a really not so great hot yoga place. And then I could shower there. So I would sleep in the car, shower at the hot yoga place, basically eat nothing. It was just a nightmare. So I could save up $100 to go to this session. And in the end, I was like, if in my situation, I can pay $100, anyone can. And that's how I chose my price.
I love it. How did you go from there? I mean, so now it looks like, there's some turnaround. People are calling me. I mean, I guess your business and sales, but at what point were you like, okay, I'm now out of my car. Like things are actually, now I'm feeling extra hope about my financial future.
So the crazy thing is I didn't actually leave the car situation. I became a digital nomad and I never went back to living anywhere. I would just travel. I drove my car all over Canada, all over the United States. And then eventually I'd park it at hotels and fly out. So I just became a digital nomad for almost 8 years after that.
Wow. It's amazing. And it's incredible what your brand has generated. I mean, over $25 million, 600% growth from year to year. I mean, it's phenomenal. Obviously, a lot of this is mindset. You talked about that switch in the car. And I just want to talk to you about alpha females, because you mentioned something that really tipped me off here, which is, resonates with me. And I think every alpha out there, when you're an alpha and you are kind of like a badass, or you're motivated, you're persevering through life, you realize, especially since you're often playing in a boys' game, you're on that like alpha tip and you're not relaxing into your feminine. It's such a struggle for alphas. Can you talk a little bit about some of the ways in which you thought about or moved into sort of like re-identifying with your femininity and that side of you? It is a tough struggle for alphas for sure.
Yeah. Well, what I love about the brand and what it stands for is this beautiful duality of like alpha, femme. Like alpha and then the female, like very feminine version, and how we do that together. I talk about the archetypes in my business, which are like this goddess energy, which is super feminine energy, balanced with this boss and badass energy. So what happens is, for me, the Alpha Femme brand is she who leads herself. And the biggest difference in being an alpha and getting all caught up in the masculine energy is leading and trying to lead everybody versus leading yourself. Who do I want to be? How do I want people to feel around me? Do I honor my word? What's my energy, and how do I lead myself? That was the first opening to leading in feminine energetics versus masculine energetics.
And you also ran your business in a different way than most people would have started it, right? You kind of started through Facebook, right? Without a website. Am I correct on that?
So the first year, there wasn't even Facebook. The first 2 years, there wasn't even Facebook. It was just word of mouth referrals.
Right.
And then eventually I used Facebook when I first started meeting my clients in person. They wanted to stay connected. So Facebook is the way we stayed connected, but I still wasn't utilizing Facebook for any kind of selling whatsoever. I utilized Facebook for connection.
Mm-hmm.
So 2013, 2014, I was completely invisible. 2015, I was on Facebook, but not using Facebook for business. 2016, I started doing Facebook Lives. I wasn't really selling or anything on Facebook, but I was talking about life and what I knew on Facebook. And then in 2017, I launched Alpha Femme. And it's been since 2017, we've made over $30 million inside of the brand.
Girl, everyone listening right now loves you. We're just so proud of you, even though we don't know you personally. This is just, it's really such a wonderful story. I want to chat with you a little bit about alphas and relationships. You talked earlier about it sort of being like addicted to the struggle. Like, my life is just a struggle. This is the way it's going to be for me. Sort of settled into that. Sometimes when we're in a victim mindset, that's where we're at. And you talked about being in that 7-year shitty relationship. We've all gone through that. What are some of the things you noticed in yourself or as an alpha female, or some of the choices you made, like for women out there that might be struggling in a crappy relationship or thinking about this? What are some thoughts you can offer to women out there about relationships?
So there's a beautiful skill that I've come to learn, and it's the one of growing from growth instead of growing from struggle. So a lot of the times we let ourselves dwindle until we hit the floor, and then we've got something to push against so that we can come back up. If you imagine yourself like drowning to the bottom of the pool, and then you kick the floor up to come back to the top instead of learning how to swim. So what has been the most beautiful part of this journey for me is not needing rock bottom anymore. Not needing bad things in order to change, actually elevating from good to better. So in relationships, when it's not great, you get to elevate it right away. You don't need to wait for it to be bad and then awful and then terrible and then over. You get to reclaim, this isn't right for me and I want better just because. And when I started doing that in my life, like upgrading from good, my life changed.
Yeah. That's amazing. And now you're engaged, right? And I know the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into your marriage plans a little bit, but that's wonderful. And what was it about this relationship? Like, did you know from did you have that sense in the beginning? What was so different about this? What was the contrast when you met this man, your fiance, Kevin, versus, other relationships in the past? Obviously, you did the prep work to even probably bring it in, but.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest difference is that I was emotionally full when I met Kevin. So there wasn't a part of me that needed to be saved, loved, taken care of. I really felt at the peak of myself by the time he came into the world for me. I had been working on myself and I felt so good. So he had to make me feel better than I already felt in order to make an impact. He didn't just need to pick up crumbs or give me just enough that I felt better than bad, which is what most of the relationships, all they needed to do was make me feel better than bad, and they had me. Whereas with Kevin, I felt great. So he just was an addition to my life. He was more than I was already. And what I loved about being with him is it never felt like I needed to change him or even worry about him, because he just felt set. I could, for the first time, be in a relationship where it was all about me. It was my joy, my happiness, my development, my journey, my business, my life. And he was this extraordinary addition to all of it.
How would you suggest someone just start going about that? I mean, obviously it is a mindset. It's about, being grateful for what you have, where you are, continuing that appreciation. I think a lot of people listening to this understand, law of attraction and the value of intention. But other than those like basics, what are some things, maybe questions women can ask themselves or look at to go, am I ready? I feel it's interesting when I talk to people about this. I say, you've got to enjoy your own company, right? Because, I don't want to be with someone that doesn't enjoy their own company. And there's those women that go from relations, one-to-one, just keep going and need to be filled and fueled by that versus by themselves. I think you're just an amazing example of that. And what you're saying is so true there. How can we sort of think about that? Or what are some questions if, women are out there and they're like, how do I get happy emotionally before I even meet this guy or attract something better?
Well, this was such a groundbreaking question for me that I asked myself, because I remember the thing to do back then was to make a list of all the things I wanted from a guy.
Right.
And I would sit and make the whole list. And I wrote the whole list of how I wanted to feel and what it would be like and all these things. And I was looking at the list and I had this strong voice come through and ask me this question: if this man does exist and he writes a similar list, do you actually hit any of the criteria of what he's praying for?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, like I want a light-hearted, funny person who's capable of love, who has a great relationship with his mother, who's got, an ability to love kids, and who's, makes me feel safe, and he's healthy and tall and this and that. And all these things that I'm like, I feel small with him, and I feel safe with him, and I feel powerful with him, and I feel all these things. And it's like, okay, so imagine this guy exists and he's looking for his perfect match, and she's bitter about her ex. She's resentful. She's sleeping in her car. Oh gosh. So what I did was, what do I imagine the person of my dreams is hoping for? And I looked at it and I was like, does that look like someone I want to be? And it was like, that's exactly who I want to be. So what started happening was, I didn't just do the work for me. I did the work for me and for the man I would meet, because if I had that much expectation in someone, it was only fair that I would care about who he received as well.
I love always turning the tables that way when thinking about relationships. Like, you can create that list of what you want, but thinking about their perspective, like the guy out there that's like, I'm looking for, and then name all your qualities, right? Like whoever you are, and kind of getting almost excited for them. You know what I mean? Like, again, turning that vibration. I love that kind of switch. I know, you've coached thousands of people and so many success stories. What's one, for example, where someone came in and they were like, I mean, I know most of your clients are, do 180s, but what's some examples that stand out of some women you've coached or have gone through your programs who just exponentially succeeded and maybe thought like, I don't know, I'm skeptical, we're maybe on the more like a little bit nervous path on this, that then finally came out the other side?
One of my favorite stories is in 2017. I had a client who joined one of my short-term masterminds, and she was a teacher at the time, a full-time teacher. And she had this dream of starting a part-time business, and she invested $5,000 in this mastermind. She had 2 young kids, her husband, full-time job as a teacher, and she joins this mastermind. And I'm asking all the women inside of it, like, so what's your goal? What do you want to do? And she's like, if I can just make the 5K back, that'd be great. So I'm like, oh gosh, okay, we got this. So she's really just starting in her business, and she's telling us about what she's doing. And at some point during the mastermind, this is all recorded and stuff. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't say this on recording. I don't even know if I should say this, but I have a strong feeling that you need to quit your job and do this full time. And she was like, what? That's insane. Like, I can't do that. I've been a teacher for years. I just want to do this on the side a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I get a feeling that you should quit your job. So fast forward the next year, this is like in November or something. So fast forward the next year in like March, she writes to me and she's like, I think I want to hire you privately to be my private mentor. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, I've made quite some money since the mastermind. I think I want to do it. So how much is it? So it was like $5,000 a month at that point. She signed up for 3 months, started making 10K a month very fast, and got pregnant with her 3rd child. And all of a sudden is making like $20,000-$30,000 months, and decided not to go back to her teaching job. And now throughout all that, had some issues with her husband, found out some things, and had to separate from her husband. So now she's got a newborn child, 2 small kids, and COVID hits. And she's got to have these 3 kids at home with her, just by herself, with no support from this man whatsoever. And within a few months, we were celebrating 6-figure months. And we celebrated $1 million this year. And she did it all as a single mom with her 3 kids, navigating heartbreak. She's now just recently met a guy that they're talking about the future and everything, like a real serious relationship. And she just finalized her divorce, and everything's coming together. And it's just like this 180 from 2017 to 2021, like a teacher trying to figure out how to make $5,000 versus like a global brand multi-millionairess who is a single mom raising her 3 kids in an amazing relationship. Like, everything changed, everything.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm so happy for her.
Me too.
Now, even though this wasn't her particular situation, but this story brings up something that's very classic. Women who are kind of trapped in the trappings of money in a relationship, right? They've been in it for so long, or they've been that stay-at-home mom or whatever, and they're like, I don't have a career, what, I got these kids. And yet they want to leave, right? But they're staying because of the security. That's a tough place to be, right? That just takes, it can be a tough place. What do you have to say for those women who want then something new, want to try to break out and on this side become something or become financially independent so that they can move on and maybe not have to rely about divorce proceeding, alimonies and all of those kind of stuff?
So one thing that I think is so important here, and it's one of those, turning the tables kind of conversations, is like, if I ever found out that Kevin stayed with me for the money, I think a part of me would die. Yep. On the inside. And it's like, men, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, and no matter what, like, they deserve freedom from this paradigm where it's okay to be with a man for his money. It's not okay for us to just use a man for his money. Like, we're better than that. We're bigger than that. And we're stronger than that. And I think that the beauty of the rise of the female that we're seeing right now is that we will be the generation that first breaks through this of, we can marry for money, or we can marry for love. I mean, not money. We can marry for love, not money. We stay for love, not money. We leave for love, not money. Like, we get to have that. This whole paradigm of like, find a rich man, and even if you fall in love with a poor man, like, you don't choose him because you'll have a bad life. Like, we don't need to do that. We get to make magic money, and we can marry for love, not money. So if you're in a marriage that you're terrified to leave because of money, it is your duty to become financially free so that both of you can have the life you deserve, because he does not deserve to be stayed with for his money, and you don't deserve a life where you don't feel love out of fear of lack.
Absolutely, out of integrity. And, that's kind of the I ask people sort of like the lottery question of someone struggling in a relationship of any kind, or like a marriage. And I always say, hey, if you won the lottery for like $200 million tomorrow, would you still be with this person? And it's the people that it takes them a minute. Those are the ones, because the other ones are like, oh my God, it would be great. Then me and my lover can go and do all of these. It's a we thing with the money, right? Oh, yeah. The answer versus the other. And that's kind of it's a harsh indicator, but sometimes that question reveals a lot.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So let's talk a little bit about, you have a lot of programs to offer people, some a little bit higher price than others. And of course, we'll put everything to connect with you and the websites and the show notes. If someone's listening right now and they're like, I want to generate money. I've got this in me. I don't know where to start. I need to be coached, encouraged by Melanie. Where do we start? What are some of the things we can look at to, some programs we can purchase and jump in on with you?
So one of the favorites that people like to jump in are my prosperity codes. Those are they were one-time things that I sold. It's like a 2-hour and 22-minute conversation. And then there's a Q&A with them. And they're $222, and you can buy the whole prosperity codes bundle. There's 3 of them for $555. That's a really cool way to plug into my work and be like, a great place to start, $200 each or $500 for all 3. And you can get a sense of how I teach and see what you like from there. I also have remastered masterclasses that are really amazing, like the money masterclass, E Squared, which is the energetics and emotions of money. And then the most recent one, the invested masterclass, that are all 3 amazing. Those are $555 also. And they're 5 modules. They're amazing. My most iconic money program is my exponential wealth program. We just completed it now. So we're selling for next year, unless you wanted to just watch the replay. But what I love in my world, and what I hope for the most, I've created a body of work that works together. And I'm still very much plugged into my work. I don't just create a program and then it's done and I walk away from it. I keep bettering my work, and I'm very much involved in all of it. So what I do is every month or so, let's say 4 to 6 weeks, a new program launches and it's live, and I'm going through it with you guys and actually teaching from a place of like where I'm at now. How has this teaching evolved since the last time I ran it a year ago or so? And it's constant evolution and growth in all of these concepts and sharpening things that I've been teaching for a while. But what's the new level? What's the new elevated level of the teaching every single time I talk about it again? So what I love is I have this experience called the Alpha Femme experience. And it's a big container. It's like a $15,000 container, $15,555, but people can pay like $1,500 a month, $1,555 a month to be in this experience with me where every live program I launch is part of the AFE you get. And then on top of that, all my pre-recorded stuff. So all like E Squared, Invested, prosperity codes, calibration keys, every single thing I have that I've talked about here and so much more is included as part of that experience. So it's a year of abundance, and it's a year where I have conversations about so many different things. I teach about relationships, personal power, magnetism, social media, branding, sales, coaching. I teach about all the things. And in a year with me, the kind of magic that happens in being in all those conversations and the live energy is like life-changing. So when you do start with a program with me, you can upgrade until the Alpha Femme experience. If you wanted to start somewhere and then see where it goes, that's a great thing. But people tend to have that on their vision board because it's just a whole year together in the energy, and it's life-changing.
Now, and just logistically, how does that work? So if we're in the year with you, do we get to connect with you live once a month? Do we get to talk to you personally? Like, where do we get to interact with you and how during that year?
So this is access to all of my programs. So the programs are run live. So if there's a Q&A or something like that, you get to ask your questions in the Q&A, but this is not personal access to me right now. I have very, very limited personal access. But what it is in the Alpha Femme experience is I run the programs live. So you're in my world and I'm right there in the program live. So if there's something that's not clear, you get to ask it on the Q&A. I'm responding in real time. So that's the magic of it. Plus, it's the most recent experience of the teaching. So it's not like something I've learned 4 years ago that worked then and maybe doesn't work now. It's like, what am I actually doing right now with myself, my private clients, the women in my masterminds, like at the highest level of coaching, and I'm bringing that into my programs. So it's not necessarily personal or private access, but it is real. It's not pre-recorded. You're with me in the energy. And you do get some of my pre-recorded stuff that's great as well, but as a bonus.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about, there's probably a lot of coaches, entrepreneurs, people listening to this podcast. And again, this topic of feeling weird about raising rates. I think we've all gone through this. You probably went through it as well. People have this moment of like, I don't know, like, who do I think I am? Or they're, again, looking at like what you did, that business card going, well, what's the going rate for people that do what I do, which that's kind of following the herd. Talk to us a little bit about this subject of like raising one rates, understanding your value. The way I look at it, because I've seen this, I've seen it span, across the board. I saw one time someone did not want to privately coach. And so the person was like, whatever, just name your price. And the person threw out like, I don't know, $5,000 an hour. And then the person was like, okay. And then they were like, oh, damn, now I have to do this hour. They thought that they were pricing the person out of the call. And it turns out the person was like, great, sounds good. Like it was a no-brainer. And I think that that's what I've realized over time. A lot of people are catering and living in this area of whether it's like $100 an hour, $250, $500, whatever. And then there's the people that have just said, I have no shame about my value and I'm charging whatever, $10,000 for a month or whatever it is. Gosh, how do we get there? How are ways people can think about raising their rates and understanding their value? Because I think they're afraid of raising their rates and then not having any clients versus the opportunity to get clients that can pay without any struggle.
So I have so many opinions about this, but the first thing is I believe that if raising your prices could put you in a difficult situation, don't raise them. The reason we raise our prices is because they're meant to be raised. It's supply and demand. It's like, it doesn't make sense to charge this anymore. I raise my price. It's not something that you have to do. It's not something that you have to push yourself to do. If you're happy selling lower end stuff, that is not a problem at all. And I think that there is a lot of shaming people for their pricing in the industry that I don't think is right. I charge $100 an hour for a very long time and it felt very aligned. And now I charge $33,000 US a month and I've got a wait list till September of 2022. So it's like, it doesn't matter how much you charge. What matters is what's the right price point for you and what feels right for you based on who you're working with. So no one will ever pay you what you're worth. Never. And there's no price to what you're worth because what's an hour worth? Which hour? Your last hour on earth, how much would you price that one? There is no worth to your time. You'll earn what you're worth based on everything you do, but you will never charge what you're worth. That will never happen. So what you do is you charge what it's worth to the person that you're attracting. And at first, the person I was attracting was a person that was very close to me. And what that meant to me was that if I could spend $100, then someone like me could spend $100 if I could help them. And when I needed help, I was willing to pay 100. If they need help, they're willing to pay 100. It had nothing to do with my value. It had to do with the value it would provide them. When I charge $33,000 a month, there are very little people to whom that makes sense to. And that has nothing to do with my worth. It has to do with what the information, the knowledge, and the energy that I bring to the table can do for a woman that is right from my container right now. And that has changed over time. So there was a moment where $100 was the perfect amount for the woman I was serving. And then $250 an hour was the perfect amount for the woman I was serving. And then $1,000 was the perfect amount for the woman I was serving. But now I have women who want to come into my world to learn how to make millions of dollars a month. You know, at least being a millionaire is like the first level goal. So I can't charge $3,000 for women who want to become millionaires. It doesn't work. There's an energetic mismatch in who they are. But it's not because I'm suddenly worth more. My life was worth just as much before. But what I can bring to a woman who wants to become a millionaire is very different than what I could bring to a woman who wanted to be a millionaire back then. I attract a different kind of woman, and I attract a different kind of power. So I think that pricing is like, you will get to elevate the price as much and as often as you desire. What the question really is what is this time? What is this hour worth to me? Meaning, am I willing to sell it for this amount, or would I rather buy it back myself? Like if someone wants to talk to me for an hour of coaching and they're like, I will spend $500 on that hour. Well, I would rather pay it myself and have an hour of free time,
Yeah.
you know? So there comes a moment where you're like, if I'm going to sell an hour of my time privately, then this is how much I'm going to ask for. And at the same time, do I believe I'm a match for the kind of power that I'm calling in? A woman who would pay the X amount of dollars for coaching. And that's the sweet spot. What it's worth for me, and it's what it's worth for them together. But not what I'm worth. You'll never get paid that.
I love that. Was just so well said. Regarding like, so at your level of coaching, when you're charging $33K a month, you've got a wait list. How do you work that? Do you just do it by the month? Do you say, hey, you're signing up with me for 6 months? And then what does that private client who's paying that get from you? Is that weekly calls? It's like, give us a little bit of an idea of what it would be like to work with you privately.
Yeah. So there's two options. It's either a 3-month, it's always paid in full when it's private coaching, because I've been through the whole giving people the time and the energy, and then, you know, then they don't pay, and I've already done the work. So I don't do that anymore. What I do now is the private coaching wait list is the best way for me. So the people have already secured their payment, and they get to join the AFE right away as soon as their payment comes in. So it's either $99,000 or $100,000 paid in full for 3 months, or $333,000 for the year if they want to do a year paid in full. And they get a coaching call with me every single week. They have access to me in Voxer. They have access to all of my programs. They can access the mastermind call replays. Like, they have access to basically all the things.
Amazing. How many private clients can you handle at a time?
So there's a time in my life. Yeah, there's a time in my life I had 31 private clients, and I realized, like, I can't do this. So I opened a mastermind, and a lot of people chose the mastermind option. So I was able to like recalibrate at a point, but then it started to tilt a little bit during the pandemic, because it was like, well, I'm not going anywhere, so I might as well. So I did add on a lot of work during the pandemic. But now when I look at next year, it's going to be about 5 private clients and 20 women in my mastermind. And then the rest is in my programs, in my AFE, and in my shorter term masterminds.
I love it. What do you do? How do you, obviously you're into personal growth. You mentioned words like alignment. I know you're about intention and attraction. So what's your daily practice, or what are some of your favorite books and mindset people out there, authors or speakers that you've really gravitated to? Any suggestions for anyone out there? And then again, just like, how do you go about your day? Do you wake up and have a morning routine, write a gratitude list? Like, what are you doing to get into the juicy intention stuff to keep all that you have going and to even increase it?
So when I first started my journey, the people that I really listened to were Abraham Hicks and Tony Robbins. They were my top people when it comes to energetics. And I did all the thing. I went to Peak Potentials, like a T. Harv Eker, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And I did all the things that they say to do, the journaling and all the things. It always felt a little disjointed to me and a little separate from me. I felt like I was doing it because I was trying to do something which is very much in masculine energy, like doing it for a result. It never felt like the true expression of my heart's desire to do those things. It felt like a checklist to try to be free. So what I have found has actually set me free over time is whatever really anchors me into the joy and pleasure and gratitude of my life. So it's, for me, what I've actually found that is the greatest practice is creating incredible environments and taking pictures. Every day, if I can set up my space in a new way that catches my eye, in a different way, where I notice the books at a different place, the crystals at a different place, the fresh flowers, to the point where I want to grab my camera nonstop and take pictures of everything because it's so beautiful and I can't stop looking at it. That's my best practice. It's changing the way things look often and always having something beautiful to look at. The gratitude of what I have, that has been the greatest practice for me.
I love it so much. Your work is incredible. Anything else that maybe we haven't covered, or something that, you feel like, oh, I want to get this message out to the ladies out there? I just love how empowering you are for women. And I think we all need to take all of your advice.
You're so kind. I mean, there's a million things we haven't said. We could talk for 20 years and probably still have more to say. But what I will say is this: we are on a journey in our life. At any point in time, we realize we're on the journey. That's a moment of wisdom, because most of the time we're just on the journey without thinking about the fact that it's a journey. We're always experiencing now, like the only period of time there is. We stress about the future, we think about the past, but we really only experience now, without realizing now is now, and without realizing that now is going to be then in a second. So timelines get blurred, and we sometimes make decisions because we forget this is a journey. For me, what has really shaped the course of my life completely is the realization that this is a journey, and that there will be a moment in my life where I look back at this moment where I was and I'll think, gosh, I wish I was doing this, or I'm so glad I was doing that. I live my life the way I want to tell the story when I'm done. When I look back at my life and everything I've been and everything I've done, what will I feel about my life? That's how I live my life now, with hindsight in mind. So every single thing I'm going through, whether it's a stressful moment in the moment, or an argument, or a problem, or how I lead myself in my business or my life, I try to bring myself back to that question. How will I want to tell the story in hindsight? What will I want to say in the future when I think back at this moment? How will I want to remember that I handled it? And I just have this external voice of wisdom, this old lady I walk with every day, the one that I know I'm becoming over time, that will either be proud of the woman I became as she sits there in my place, or who will wish I did just a little better, because it's a shame that life goes by so fast. So with that, like, bittersweet, almost sadness, I walk with, knowing that there'll be a time I'll be there, and I'll be glad I kept her in mind my whole life.
Ah, I love that so much. That's really a lovely way to end this interview. Thank you so much for your help. We'll put everything to connect with you in the show notes, but what is the best website where people can go, ooh, I want to access these things we talked about? Because you've got the Alpha Femme website where you sell some products, but then there's melanieannlayer.com. And then, of course, you're really active on Instagram. Is melanieannlayer.com the best for us to go look at your programs? And
so I actually don't have a website. I have sales pages for different offers, but we don't really have a website right now. We've built the whole business without one, which is kind of crazy. We have a Shopify store to buy the Alpha Femme swag from. And then whenever we have a new program or a masterclass, we release a sales page, but there's no place you can go really with like a full-blown website. So the best thing to do is to connect with me on social media. It's to be connected with me in my free Alpha Femme group, or on Instagram at Alpha Femme or Melanie Ann Layer, and on my personal profile on Facebook, because that's where I'll launch a new masterclass. That's where you'll see what's upcoming, the new branding of the things I do drop directly on my social media. And whenever you need anything, I have my Alpha Femme team or that manage my account. So you can send me a private message if you've listened to this and you're like, I want more information on this, or I have questions. Like, you just message me and my team will help you figure out exactly what you need. We'll send you to the right videos, or we'll send you to the right sales page, or we're very much question and answer rather than figure it out yourself.
I love it so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And also, you must be so proud of yourself. What a wonderful feeling. I know it's only going to continue, and we're just excited to watch your work and see where things go from here.
That means so much to me. What a beautiful thing to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for everyone else, we'll see you soon.
Hey listeners, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.